Hi there, this is Noah with the Training and Marketing Department. Welcome to the ERS family. Looking forward to working with you. So this is going to be a training video that's going to show you how to log into your ERS folder, how to manage and add new users, how to place an order on both the front end and the back end, and how to customize the ordering process. Now before I dive in, I want to encourage you to like and subscribe to the ERS YouTube channel, which you can do by clicking on the ERS logo in the bottom right-hand corner of this video. And that way you'll never miss out on any updates and training resources as we release them. So the first thing I like to explain to people is the basic structure of the ERS system. The ERS system consists of two parts, the front end and the back end. Now the front end is your company's website that we're hosting for you, and that's public facing. Anyone in the world can go to your company's website and learn more about your company, browse your inventory, and if they're in your local service area, they can book an order. However, the back end is not customer facing. That's where you're going to do your work in your ERS folder, and it's only accessible to you, your employees, and ERS support staff. Now the front end and the back end work hand in hand, and we are going to get a closer look at that as we go through this video. Now we also have our mobile driver app, but that's not really a third part of the ERS system. That's basically just another version of the back end. It's optimized for day-to-day driver tasks rather than higher level administrative tasks. So it's really just a different version of the back end. So anytime you want to work in your ERS folder, folders is what we call accounts in our system, you want to open up your preferred web browser. We recommend Chrome, but any of them should work. And you're going to go to your folder name, .ourers.com/cp. Folders is what we call accounts in our system. So every ERS folder has a unique folder name, just like you have a unique account number at your bank. And anytime you talk with tech support, they'll ask you for your folder name. Your folder name is always going to be a string of letters and/or numbers without spaces. And you should have your folder name along with your initial login username and password in an email from your customer success team. Now, if you haven't gotten that email yet, reach out to your customer success specialist and they will be happy to supply you with that information. So I'm going to go ahead and log into my training folder here, and I will show you how you can update your username and password and create user accounts for everybody who's going to use your ERS folder. So to do that, we're going to go to Admin, General Config, Users. Now, I encourage you to create a user account for everybody who's going to use your ERS folder. Don't just share the same login for everybody. If you do that, you're not going to have any way of knowing who's done what. And also, everybody will have the same permission level, and you don't want your drivers having the same permission level that you do. So to edit my username and password, I'm going to go ahead and click into my user account here. And I'm going to go ahead and click here to update my username. Now, technically, you don't have to. You can leave it as admin, but I like to personalize it a little bit. This brings me to one of the more important lessons about users. You want to make sure that every user has a unique username. So for example, if I hired another Noah, because you can never have too many Noahs, I would do something like this. I'd put their last name initials at the end of their username or something like that, just so that I don't have two users who both have the username Noah. Now I'm also going to go ahead and update my password. Now, when you create new user accounts for your employees, you're going to want to go ahead and establish a password for them in these fields here, and then they can come in here and update their password in the same way that we're doing here. Now, this email field is not required, but it is recommended, and it is very important that you assign any new user that you're creating to a group. Of course, you're going to leave your profile in the administrator group because that's the one with the highest permission levels, followed by manager, and then employee, and then driver. If you create a new user profile and don't assign it to a group, they won't be able to log in. Now these groups are customizable. You can create new ones, you can edit the existing ones, you can nest groups within parent groups, you can do all kinds of fancy stuff. Most of our users never bother to do any of that fancy stuff because the 4 default groups that are in here work just fine for them. But if you ever do want to edit these groups, it's real simple. You just click into any user profile and click here on Edit Groups. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and fill out the first name and last name and phone and mobile carrier fields. Once again, these are recommended but not required fields. And the reason that they are recommended is for routing and tasks. Up here in the Delivery tab, what we call the routing area, you're able to build routes and assign drivers and assistants to those routes. But in order for a user to show up in the drop-down menu of people that you can assign routes to, you have to have their first name and last name field filled out in their user profile. And then once you've created that route, you can send them a text message with their route information. And in order to be able to do that, you have to have their phone and mobile carrier field filled out. Now the rest of these fields are optional. If the language field is set to either default or English, then these tooltips that you can hover over to give you clues on how to use the system will show up in English. If you have an employee who prefers Spanish, you can set their user profile language to Spanish, and then these tooltips will show up in Spanish for them. So I've made some changes, so I'm going to go ahead and submit those changes. And in order to create new user accounts, you just go to Admin, General Config, Users, where we are right now, and click here on Add New. So let's go ahead and go through an order on the front end so that we know what that process is going to be like for our customers and so that we can customize the process, because the whole ordering process is customizable from start to finish. Now, when we're taking real orders in our ERS folder, like a phone order or otherwise inputting real orders, we want to do that through the back end, and we'll go through that after we go through the front end ordering process. Anytime you're logged into the back end of your ERS folder, you can click on the logo image right here, and it's going to open up the front end in a separate browser tab. So there's a tutorial about customizing the front-end ordering process in our knowledge base, and I'm going to go ahead and share that URL with you in the description text for this video down below. Again, the entire ordering process is customizable from start to finish. So this article will talk about each individual part of the ordering process and walk you through how you can edit each part. So you want to have this article open when you're placing an order on the front end in your folder. So I'm going to start with the Book Now button, or call to action as it's known in web developer land. And again, the customizability starts right from the beginning. So this Book Now button does not have to say Book Now. It can say See All, or Check Availability, or whatever you want it to say. By default, this button goes through the order by date process, meaning that it gives your customers instructions on how to order and then prompts them to choose a date for their order. But it doesn't have to do that. Some people feel that when your customers click on that Book Now button, the first thing they want to see is your inventory. So we can make the Book Now button go to your store, which is a web page that displays all of your inventory categories, or we can make it lead somewhere else. Again, it's all customizable, so feel free to check out the Book Now button or call to action section of this article if you want to change where this Book Now button leads to or what it says. Now these instructions on how to order are called price rule text. And as you can see from the text itself, it tells you where to go to edit it. And even if you're not using order by date, your customers are going to see this text at some point during the ordering process. So you want to edit this text before you take your website live. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a date for my order. And I'm making this video on Monday, April 3rd. Well, we can see that today and tomorrow are both grayed out. That's because of my minimum advance for booking setting. By default, that setting is set to 2 days, and the idea is that we don't want you going to bed at 11 o'clock tonight, and a customer goes to your website at 11:30 tonight and books an order for first thing tomorrow morning, and then you wake up tomorrow morning freaking out because you have an order you're not ready to fulfill. Now that said, the minimum advance for booking setting supports entries in either hours or days, so you can customize it however you want. We have some customers who require an entire week of advance notice for online booking, and we have some customers who accept next day orders all the way up until midnight. But if, for example, you would like to establish a policy where you take online orders until 5 p.m. and then after that they have to call your office, well, you can enter in your minimum advance for booking setting in hours. So for example, if your first available time for an order is 9 a.m., you can do the math back to 5 p.m. the previous day and set your minimum advance for booking to 16 hours. Because 9 a.m. minus 16 hours is 5 p.m. the previous day. So once again, there is a chapter in the Customizing the Front-End Ordering Process article that I shared with you about the minimum advance for booking setting, so feel free to consult that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go with this coming Saturday for my order. And this is what we call the time span ordering mode. What it means is that after your customers have chosen a date for their order, they see a party start time and party end time drop-down menu. Now, some people prefer time slots. So for example, maybe you have a morning time slot and a midday time slot and an afternoon time slot. And maybe you even have different time slots for different days of the week. And some people actually prefer their customers just to pick a date, and so that the system can automate the time frame under the hood based on the date or day of the week that the customer chose. We can support all of that, so please feel free to consult the ordering mode chapter in that article. So I'm going to go ahead and go with 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. for this order. And this is what we call the store. This is the page I mentioned earlier that shows all of your inventory categories. Now you can change the order of the categories. You can change which categories show up here. And again, there is a chapter on that in that article, so feel free to consult that. Now, when you first signed up with us, one of the questions we ask you on your kickoff form is what inventory you have. So when you first go through this ordering process in your folder, most likely you'll see your inventory in there. However, every once in a while, it might happen that the first time you come in here to place an order in your folder, you're looking at placeholder inventory. We haven't gotten your actual inventory in your folder yet. If that's the case, don't worry about it. We'll get your real inventory in there soon, but you can still go ahead and place orders using the placeholder inventory that you'll see in here. The idea is to really hit the ground running so that you know how to place and manage orders in your folder. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick look at the inflatable slides category. And I want to point out some things that we're doing to help you under the hood with your SEO. Now, SEO, in case you're not familiar with it, it stands for search engine optimization. Most people have at least a passing familiarity with it, but just in case, I'll give you a quick rundown. The basic idea is when people in your local service area type something like party rentals near me into a search engine, you want your company's website to be at or near the top of the first page of the search results. Now, SEO is complex, and we can't just wave a magic wand and give you the top rankings in your local service area overnight. But we can help you under the hood by doing things like putting the name of the category up here in the URL bar and down here in the H1 tag for the web page. Now, why does that matter? Well, we could just use a category ID number, but category ID 26435 doesn't mean anything to a search engine, whereas inflatable slides does mean something. It tells a search engine that this web page is about inflatable slides, so it can help a search engine index the page for rankings. So we've also done things like adding description text from the backend category page and adding an alt tag to the images on this page. Let's go ahead and look at the item web page. And I'll point out that we're doing the same thing on our item web pages. See, we've got the name of the item up here in the URL bar, down here in the H1 tag, and then we've got some pricing information that will automatically display, and some further information from the back end about dimensions, how many outlets are required, description text, etc. And there is a chapter in the knowledge base article about how you can customize your item and category web pages. I encourage you to do that after you've taken your website live. The ERS system will automatically construct a web page with the item or category's picture, description text, and other information that you can see here. So you can customize those web pages to be even more fancy than that, but that's a down the road thing. I encourage you to just use the basic web pages as they are to take your website live, and then customizing those web pages later can be a fine-tuning. So I'm going to go ahead and add this item to my cart. And once again, there is a chapter on the cart page in the knowledge base article. If you would like to have a cart step on this page, you are welcome to do so. A cart step displays a prompt for the customer, asking them for contact information in order to proceed with their order. If you don't have a cart step on this page, your customers will be prompted to enter in their information on the next page, the customer information page. Most people don't use a cart step, but you are welcome to use one if you like. And we also see in here a suggested add-on. Now you can see that a suggested add-on is intended for upselling. It prompts people to add items to their cart. And I'm going to go ahead and use it to add a snow cone machine to my cart. And now we see a required add-on. So a required add-on is very similar to a suggested add-on in that it prompts your customers to add items to their cart. However, it is required that your customer answers the question in order to proceed with their order. So a required add-on is intended for situations like this, where, for example, if your company policy is that you supply one free bottle of snow cone syrup with each snow cone machine rental, your customer is prompted to choose their free flavor. By default, required add-ons display the pictures of the items in the add-on, but that's a setting, so if you'd like to turn those pictures off, feel free to consult the chapter in the knowledge base article on suggested and required add-ons to learn how to do that. And also to learn how to optimize your upselling with different suggested add-ons. So I'm going to go with the fake red cherry flavored stuff. I love that fake red cherry stuff. And here we are back on the cart screen, and we're seeing the same suggested add-on. You can create as many suggested add-ons as you like to really try to optimize your upselling and maximize those ticket sizes. So in addition to consulting the knowledge base article, I encourage you to join us for the intermediate webinar training. We discuss how to use packages to sell or rent items in multiple different forms, and how to use multiple add-ons to really maximize your ticket sizes. So I'm going to go ahead and click here to check out, and now we see the customer information page. Once again, feel free to consult the knowledge base article about this web page. You can edit the text on these headers up here. You can add additional headers. You can take some of these headers away. Just keep in mind that these headers create a column on this web page, so anything that you do to change them could change the layout of this page. You can also move fields around, and some of these fields can actually be removed. Now, some of them are required, such as first name, last name, email, and phone, and all of the billing address fields. But some of these contact information fields are optional. For example, in this folder we've got both a phone field and a mobile phone field, and they're both required. However, you don't have to have two phone fields on this page. We can get rid of the mobile phone field for you if you'd like. Or you can leave it in there, and we can change it to, say, secondary phone instead of mobile. And/or we can make it not required. Now this menu right here is called the References menu, and the Customer Information Page chapter tells you where you can go to edit the choices in that drop-down menu. This is what we call the Setup Surfaces menu, and once again, the Customer Information chapter tells you where you can go to edit these choices. Now this feature works hand in hand with another feature called Surface Load Options to add things like stakes, blowers, extension cords, sandbags, ropes, etc. to the load sheet in the routing area so that your drivers don't leave anything at the warehouse, and we'll take a closer look at that later in the training. Now this is what we call an order option. Order options generate a question and/or statement that your customer has to read and answer via either a drop-down menu like this one or an open-ended text field like this one. Now this is a special order option, and we know not every company does public parks. You can get rid of this order option if you'd like. But if you leave it in place, if the customer answers yes to this question, then the system will know that this event is happening at a public park, and it will trigger some different settings in the routing area so that your equipment doesn't sit unattended at a public park for several hours. And we'll get a chance to take a closer look at that later in the training. Now this is also an order option. We call this one the damage waiver, and you can see from the text of it that what it does is it gives you free money, and it gives your customers an out if they accidentally damage your equipment. You won't charge them for it. Now when some people hear this, they think, well, that sounds like a terrible idea. Why would I do that to myself? If somebody damages my equipment, of course I have to take payment from them, otherwise I'm going to lose money on that event. Now this is a totally understandable sentiment, but what we found over and over again over the course of thousands of customers is that a lot of customers will opt into this damage waiver. They feel like it's peace of mind for them, and they're not going to damage your equipment. Most of your customers are going to be conscientious enough that they're not going to damage your equipment. So you'll take in a lot of money from this damage waiver. In fact, once your ERS folder really gets going, this order option right here will pay your ERS monthly bill and then some. One of our bigger customers took in $85,000 one year just in damage waivers. Now, of course, you don't have to leave it in there. Again, this is customizable. It's up to you. But all default folders are set up to have it in here. So if you do nothing, it will be in place for you making money. Now, I just want to point out one little detail about how we've structured this order option, because we've tried to nudge things in the direction of making you as much money as possible. Order options can have a blank option in the drop-down menu or not. And you can see this particular order option does not have a blank option. So if the customer doesn't want that 7% upcharge, they actually have to click into the drop-down menu and choose no. Whereas the park order option is built with a blank option, so your customer can just leave it blank and proceed to the next question. To learn more about order options and also reminders, which are these checkboxes over here, feel free to consult the customer information chapter in the knowledge base article. Keep in mind that order options and reminders can be conditional. In other words, they can only show up under certain circumstances, if you like. Okay, now this is what we call the payment page, and this is an editable page. The text up here is editable, and this picture right here that says we accept these card types is also editable. You can make the picture bigger, you can make it smaller, you can get rid of it, you can add additional pictures, you can add videos to this page, you can edit this text up here, you can edit the formatting, the font, the size, the color, anything you'd like to do. You can even get rid of the text and start over from scratch if you like. Once again, the payment page chapter in the knowledge base article will tell you where you can go to edit this page. Now, under these payment types here, when you take your ERS website live, unless you instruct us otherwise, we are going to remove Submit Without Payment as a payment type for you here on the front end. We'll leave it in the back end, but most of our customers don't want their customers to be able to book an order without paying a deposit with either a credit card or a gift card. So once you've taken your ERS website live, if you need to see the next page in this ordering process, and submit without payment is not an option for you, your best bet is to use your actual credit card number and then immediately go back into the back end and void that payment. As long as you void a credit card payment before it batches, you will not have to pay the processing fee on it. But before you've taken your ERS website live, submit without payment is available here for you. So I'm going to go ahead and submit my order without a payment. And the last page in this process is the thank you page. Once again, this is an editable page, so feel free to consult the thank you page chapter in the knowledge base article to learn how to edit this web page. Now, this text up here can be edited. Once again, you can edit the text itself, the formatting, the color, the font, the size. You can add pictures, you can add videos, links, anything you'd like to do up there. However, this information down here comes from what we call a merge field. And that merge field is going to be in brackets. It's going to say area, store, receipt. So make sure to leave that merge field in place so that your customers can see that important information. So that is the front-end ordering process. Let's go ahead and go through the back-end ordering process now. So back-end ordering is how you want to take real orders in your ERS folder, and it's how you want to train your employees to take real orders as well. So to take an order in the back end, we're going to click on Scheduling, and then Book to book an event. So let's say a friend of mine called me up and says, "Hey Noah, it's a coworker's birthday tomorrow, and I forgot. I know this is late notice. I'd like to throw a surprise birthday party for her. Can you help me out?" And I say, "Sure. We've got a happy birthday bounce house. Would you like to take a look at that?" And he says, "Yeah, that sounds great." So I'm going to click into the bounce houses category, and I'm going to ask him, "Dustin, what time do you guys start your day?" And he's going to tell me, "Well, that's the other thing, Noah. We start early. We go 8 to 5. Is that going to be a problem?" And I'm saying, "Nope, that's totally fine." So I've gone ahead and clicked into the item, and now I'm going to choose a date. Now remember, on the front end, today and tomorrow are grayed out because of my minimum advance for booking settings. Well, on the back end, they're also grayed out. But on the front end, there's no way my customers can override it. However, in the back end, I can override it by clicking on the date and confirming the warning message. So remember, my friend told me that his event is happening from 8 to 5. Well, the earliest available time in this drop-down menu is 9 o'clock. So what I have to do is I need to use this expand button to expand that drop-down menu, which will enable me to choose a time for the event outside of my normal business hours. Okay, so we're in the cart screen. And this folder's price rules are set to automatically upcharge an additional 20% for any event that's happening on the same day but that is longer than 4 hours. So that's why this item, whose base price is $250, is displaying at $300. Now on the cart screen in the back end, there are some back end only features. So for example, we can change the delivery schedule for an order using this Set Delivery button. And in this area, we can change the delivery time if we leave it here under Set Delivery Time, or we can actually change the time of the order using the New Order Time button. Since your delivery schedule is your call and not your customer's call, this is another back-end only feature. So let's go ahead and go back to the cart screen. Now another back-end only feature that we've got in here is what we call the Quick Order. Once the system knows the date and time for your order, this Quick Order button will show up in the far right of that little blue bar right here. So the Quick Order area shows you all of your items and allows you to add them to your order with fewer clicks than the regular shopping cart interface. So let's say I've upsold my buddy to add a slide and a popcorn machine and a cotton candy machine to his order. The advantage of the Quick Order area is that I can add all of those items, click Add to Cart, and voila! It's faster than going through each category. Now there are some other back-end only features in here. For example, we've got the Quick Quote. So this differs from the Quick Order. What we can do is we can click on the Quick Quote, and it enables us to add a first name, last name, and email only, and then skip all of the rest of these fields and click Submit to send our customer a quote. Now, it will not include the travel fee if we don't put anything here under the event address. And the other thing to keep in mind about this is that if you send someone a quote, they do not have an activated order. Remember, a quote is not the same thing as an order. If you want to submit an order without a payment, we're going to use Submit Without Payment, and we'll take a look at that in just a moment here. Now, last but not least, we've got some other back-end only features in here that we can use the Price button for. So, for example, if we'd like to reorder items in the cart, we can move items up or down. If we'd like to edit the price of an item, we can click on the price and then click here on Update Price. If we would like to apply a discount, we can click here on Discount, enter in the discount, and then click Update Discount. And there will be a little note describing the discount. So let's go ahead and go to that customer information page. And the back-end customer information page gives us, again, more back-end only features that our customers don't have on the front end. So for example, we've got a customer search field here. If this is a repeat customer, I can enter in a name, email address, or whatever, and it will pull up the customer's information and autofill it, saving me time. So we've got some more back-end only features in here. We've got an internal notes field right here. We can apply a general discount using this field. We can override the travel fee. We can override the deposit requirement. We can apply a different tax percentage. We can add miscellaneous fees. Now, many of these fields support text in addition to the numbers, so if I do something like this, it's going to add a $25 fee and a little note explaining what the fee is for. Now, this is a little formatting detail, and we don't expect you to remember all of those little formatting details, which is why we've created these tooltips here. You can hover over these tooltips any place you see them in the back end, and they're going to give you clues and hints as to how to use your ERS folder. So feel free to use these. They're super useful and helpful. Now, I made them, so I guess I would say that, but I think they actually are. These are what we call order checklists. So if you have procedures that you have your employees go through every time you have an order, you can create an order checklist and have your employees mark those tasks as complete using the checkboxes. Last but not least, another back-end only feature here is customer status. If you mark a customer as bad, that means they're not going to be able to book an order on your website. If you mark them as bad cleared, that's a historical note for yourself, reminding you that there's history between you and that customer. At one point you considered them a bad customer, but now it's been cleared up and you're willing to do business with them again. So here on the payment page in the back end, you're going to see, once again, some more options. You can mark an order as paid with check or cash. Or if the customer has a credit or rain check on file, you can use that. You've also got submit without payment here in the back end. As I mentioned earlier, we remove this from the front end when we take your website live, unless you instruct us otherwise. But this is important to remain here in the back end so that you can take orders without a payment. So for example, to go back to my friend Dustin, who called me up for the surprise birthday party for his coworker, let's say he forgot to bring his credit card with him to work today. But he's one of my oldest friends. I know he's going to pay me, so I want to go ahead and submit the order. He knows he wants the order. He doesn't just want a quote. He actually wants the order, and I trust him to pay me later. So that's when you use submit without payment. You go ahead and choose that. You check this box, and you use one of these two green buttons right here. Do not send a quote in situations like that. If you send someone a quote, the ball is in their court. They have a quote and not an order. Okay, so of course in most real-life situations you will submit and send a receipt. If you're ever in a situation where you don't need to send the receipt, then you can use that button right there. So that's the back-end ordering process. Let's go through a quick tour of the back end, and then we will wrap this tutorial. Let's start with the home area. This is the first area that you will see when you log into your ERS folder, except the very first time. The very first time you will be prompted to read and agree to our monthly services agreement, which is just the legalese that you have to read and agree to use our software like you do with any software. So you can see there are recent updates at the top. You've got an event calendar here, which is actually the same event calendar that you'll see in the scheduling area, and we'll take a closer look at that in just a moment here. You've got a virtual terminal right here, which is where you can do miscellaneous credit card transactions. For example, if you need to charge someone's credit card $20 without creating a new order or adding items to an existing order, you can do that here. This is also where you're going to click to apply for your ERSPay account. ERSPay is the payment gateway that is native to our software that enables you to take credit card payments. Now, I encourage you to apply for your ERSPay account no less than about 4 or 5 days before you expect to take your ERS website live, because you don't want to go live with your brand new beautiful ERS website but not be able to take credit card payments. That would be a bummer. Now, the URL that link will take you to is the same URL that you can go to check the progress of your ERSPay application once you've submitted it if you haven't yet been approved. We've also got add-on services in here. So if you would like for us to manage your SEO or your Google ads, your Facebook ads, or you're interested in learning about our high-level services, you can click into this area. Capital Advance is our small business loan program that we offer through ERSPay. So once you're approved for your ERSPay account, please feel free to click into this area if you would like to learn more about that and or apply for a loan. Now down here we've got tasks, and you can see that the top task is a customer-specific task. That's why it has the customer's name next to it. Whereas the bottom two tasks are just general tasks. So if you add a new task in this area, it will be a general task. Whereas if you add a task in the CRM, this Customers tab, it will be specific to that customer. And we'll take a closer look at that in just a moment here. So then we've got a couple of visual reports here. We have recent updates here as well. You can scroll through these to see what we've been up to. And some of them have clickable training tutorial resources. We've got a weather forecast over the next 5 days in your local service area. We've got some account information. All of those areas are clickable, so you can learn more by clicking into them. The month-to-date report compares your revenue this year with your revenue last year, so there won't be any data in this report until you've been with us for a year. And if you would like to change the color scheme of your ERS control panel, you can do that here. The admin area is where you're going to do higher-level administrative tasks, hence the name. So for example, managing users like we did earlier in this tutorial. Editing web pages, inventory, documents, that sort of thing. We cover this area in more detail in the ERS Intermediate webinar, so please feel free to join us for that. The scheduling area, again, is where you can book an event in the back end. It's also where you can see an active event calendar. You can play around with different views in here as well. Right now we're looking at our active events, but if we click on Created, it's going to show us our active events based on the date they were created rather than the date of the event itself. Now you can click into a date in this calendar, and if there aren't any orders on the date you've chosen, you can either click back into the calendar to choose a different date, or you can look at up to a 30-day event range. Now you can manage the inventory, the answers to the questions that the customer made on the customer information page, or the payments for an order by clicking into an order in this area here. So if you know the date of the order, you can usually click into that date and find the order that way. If you don't remember the date of an order, you can use this search feature right here to search for the order using an order number, or the customer's name, or the customer's email, or their phone number, or whatever information you have about the order. Once you've found the order, you can either click on the cart to add items or manage the items in the order, or you can click on the customer link to edit the answers on the customer information page, or you can click on the payment icon to manage payments for the order. So let's say this customer went ahead and paid the deposit for their order using cash. And let's say the customer added a tip. And then, of course, you're going to want to use one of these two green buttons to submit either with the receipt or without. And now that we've managed the payment for that order, I'll show you how you can cancel an order. So canceling an order is real simple. You just click on this little gear icon, choose whether to apply a rain check or not. Keep in mind, any outstanding balance that you deduct from this amount right here will show up as an overpayment in your reports. So you want to manage the payments for your orders in accordance with your company policy before you cancel an order. In this case, we're just going to say, okay, our company policy is your deposit is non-refundable, but any further payment that you applied towards your order is refundable, but we will also keep the deposit payment as a rain check for a future order. So we're good to go here. And then once you've gotten all that squared away, you click here to cancel the event. And voila. Now there are some other layouts for events as well. Right now we're looking at the events list layout, but these next 5 views all display similar information to what events list displays. However, it's just laid out a little bit differently. The availability chart is a little bit different. It doesn't show any customer information. It literally just shows a chart of what's available during the date or date range that you chose. There are also filters in here. Sales only will show all of your orders that only have sales items in them. A sales item is an item that you're truly selling rather than renting. In other words, it's an item that you don't expect to get back. Events only will show you all of your events that have at least one rental item in them. So for example, a sales item is snow cone syrup. You typically deliver snow cone syrup and you don't expect to get it back. Whereas the snow cone machine is a rental item. You're going to deliver it, and then you're going to pick it up later. Register only and exclude register refer to a full cash register setup with a receipt printer and a cash drawer and all of that business. So those are really only for our FEC or Family Entertainment Center customers, not relevant to most of our rental customers. And you can also use a driver filter to look at only the events that have been assigned to a given driver. So that's the scheduling area. Let's take a quick look at the CRM. This Customers tab stands for Customer Relationships Manager. Now there are 3 service packages with ERS. There's Standard, Pro Plus, and the Works. If you are Pro Plus or the Works, you have the ability to click this button to enable a newer spreadsheet style view of the CRM. Now with this older view, you can do most of the same things that you can do with that newer spreadsheet view. But if you are Pro Plus or the Works, I encourage you to click on this button to try out this newer spreadsheet style view. In addition to having helpful shortcuts up here at the top, it also lays out your customers in a spreadsheet style view, which can be helpful, and you can click on the headings to reorganize the page alphabetically by that heading. But this newer spreadsheet style view also enables you to look at filtered lists of your customers. So for example, I can look at each customer who's been marked as a prospect. So let's click into a customer profile and take a closer look at that area. Now when the system senses that 2 customer records might be the same person, it gives you the ability to link those customer profiles together, which I've done here. So let's look at this version of that customer. I can update the customer's contact information in this area right here. I can see custom fields in this area over here. I can create and read time-stamped notes in this area. I can create and assign tasks over here. Remember, these are the same tasks that we will see here in the home area. However, if they were created in the home area, they're going to be general tasks, not related to any specific customer. Whereas if we create them here in a customer profile, then they're going to be specific to that customer, and they'll show up with that customer's name next to them in the home area. We can see a messaging history between us and this customer here. Now we don't see any messages between me and this customer because this customer is using the junk@eventrentalsystems.com email address. This is a testing email that we created for situations where an email field is required, but we don't want the system to actually send an email. The special area enables us to view and manage points for the customer. You can do a lot of fancy things with points, but the most common use case is loyalty programs. You can also establish custom pricing in this area if a customer gets special pricing on some or all of your inventory. And last but not least, you've got a combined billing area over here. So you can view all outstanding balances for a given customer and send them a combined invoice if you like. And I know what you're thinking, boy, Noah must be pretty bad at business to let that customer get that far behind. But it's just a training folder. So I plead my innocence. All right, so then down here, we're going to see orders and canceled orders and quotes for a customer. And just like in the scheduling area, we can click into various areas within these orders to manage the order. So that's the CRM. The delivery tab, what we call the routing area, enables you to use the same views that you have in the scheduling area to reorganize your events. And it also enables you to create routes. So let's look at a date that I've already routed. This little tree right here tells me that this event is happening at a park. And when I click into that event, I can see that my delivery window for that event is only an hour, which means I can only start setting up that event no more than an hour early. Because again, we don't want our equipment sitting unattended at a public park for hours. Whereas if we look at a regular event, we've got a much broader window of time, which can enable me to deliver events sometimes out of chronological order. Because, for example, maybe my 2 o'clock event is at a place that's closer to my warehouse than my 12 o'clock event, so it makes business sense for me to deliver the 2 o'clock event first. Most customers are okay with having their units a couple extra hours at the beginning of their event. You can never be late, but most of the time you can be early. Not all the time, of course. But again, you need a much more narrow window of time for your park events. Once the route looks like I want it to, I can assign a driver and as many assistants as I like. And then I can click here to go ahead and open up the route. And I'll see the visual map here, and the turn-by-turn directions down here, and the load sheet over here. This right here is the surface load options. That tells us, based on the setup surface for the event and the item in the order, what additional items are going to need to go out with this order so that my drivers don't leave any stakes, blowers, or extension cords, etc. at the warehouse. And we see that down here for the next order as well, and the next order, etc. You get the idea. Down at the bottom of the load sheet, there's going to be a total load list. That's going to tell my drivers, based on all of the setup surfaces and all of the items in these orders, you're going to need a total of X many blowers, X many extension cords, X many sandbags, etc. So I can remove any part of this that I don't feel like my drivers need to see. And then once it looks like I want it to, I can either click here to print it and hand paper copies to my drivers and assistants, or I can click here to send them a text message with their route information. Now again, I will show you in a moment where you can access a routing tutorial. Just keep in mind that the tutorial was made about 3 years ago, and we've added a bunch of features to the routing area since we made the tutorial. Now the tutorial still covers the basics pretty well. However, there's one thing that's part of the basics that it doesn't cover because we added it after we made the tutorial. And that is, in order to add custom stops, you click here at the end of the route on this little plus button. In order to add additional trucks, you click here on this plus button right here. In order to click and drag events around or custom stops around, in order to do any of those things, you have to first click on this lock to unlock the route. A few of our customers gave us the feedback that they had accidentally clicked and dragged events into different places in their route and messed up their route, so they asked us for a safeguard. So that's the routing area. Next, we've got reports. There are some visual reports up here at the top, and you can click into these visual reports to drill down a little bit deeper into the data. There is a detailed tax report right here. There is a reconciliation report for your credit card payments here. And there are over 100 reports down here. One of our larger customers told us a few years ago, "Hey guys, love your software. It's really helped us take our business to the next level. But I got to admit, this reports area can be a little bit overwhelming. There are so many reports here, it can be hard for us to remember which ones we use the most often." So we added the ability to add reports to your favorites. So these little star icons right here, if you click on one of them, it's going to add that report to your favorites. And then if you click on that star again, it's going to remove it from your favorites. Last but not least, we've got some help resources in place for you. You can get in touch with tech support, the customer success department, or inquire about your ERSPay application or account with these links and information here. You can reach the billing department. You can explore our knowledge base. So for example, if you would like to access that routing tutorial, you can come into the knowledge base and click here to access that tutorial. If you would like to learn how to use the driver app, which works hand in hand with the routing area and is a great thing to learn, by the way, you can do a search for that. You can also join us in our private users group on Facebook. There are about 2,800 people in here, and they're all either ERS employees or ERS users. It's a private group. So it's a great supplemental tech support resource if you'd like to ask a question about how to use your ERS folder, but even more importantly, it's an incredibly valuable source of business acumen. Some of the most successful party rental company owners in the world are in this group. So any questions or advice that you have about the business, this is a great place to ask those questions. So for example, let's say you're thinking about getting into photo booth rentals. Well, you can post your questions in this group. "Hey folks, I'm thinking about getting into photo booth rentals. What brands would you recommend? How are you marketing them? What kind of return on investment are you seeing?" You'll get a lot of really helpful answers in here. People love helping our colleagues in the field here. So it's an extremely valuable resource, and I encourage you to join us in here. You can also use our help menu to register for another webinar, and you can reread that monthly services agreement. Again, the legalese that you have to read and agree to use the ERS software. There are also some step-by-step tutorials in here. For example, this one can teach you how to void payments. Now, these tutorials actually are in the software itself. So for example, with the voiding payments one, once I've read this text here, I can click on next, and it's going to tell me, okay, now click here. Okay, now click here. Okay, type in here now. Okay, click search once you've finished typing. You get the idea. Now these tutorials are fairly new to our system, so please feel free to give us feedback. If you click out of the tutorial, you'll get a survey, and answers are anonymous and confidential, so please feel free to give us feedback. And if you finish the tutorial, you'll get the same survey. And if it's great, tell us. And if it's terrible, definitely tell us. Now last but not least, you can also chat with the tech support department by clicking down in here. So the very last thing I want to tell you before we wrap this video is the most important thing I'm going to say all day. If you forget everything else I said, that's fine, but don't forget this. Reach out to tech support early and often. Our tech support department is right here in the United States of America in either our Albuquerque, New Mexico office or our Austin, Texas office. So everybody in there speaks English, and actually a few of them speak Spanish as well, so we do have you covered if you like bilingual support or if you have employees who like bilingual support. They're friendly, they're helpful, and they spend all day, day in and day out, messing around with the ERS system. So as a new customer, questions that you have that might take you 3 or 4 hours to figure out, if you send a quick email to tech support or you give them a call, chances are they can get you taken care of in 5 or 10 minutes. You signed up with ERS probably for pretty much 2 reasons, right? You want to make more money, and you want to make your life easier. Well, when you first start with us, you're learning a new system. So you got to get over that hump before we can do both of those things for you. And we want to help you get to that place where you're making more money and making your life easier as quickly as possible. And tech support is your #1 key for doing that. Again, you can reach them either by chatting with them with this little chat bubble right in here, or by clicking on the link in this little menu right in here. You can click here to call them, or click here to send them an email. So that about does it for this training, folks. Thank you very much for joining us. Again, I want to encourage you to like and subscribe to the ERS YouTube channel by clicking on the ERS logo in the lower right-hand corner of this video. Don't forget to reach out to tech support early and often. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.